Welcome to the Players Ball podcast for AT Aliens by AT Aliens, the number one podcast in Stankonia. I'm your host, Alex the Great, and I'm joined by my co-host, the wonderful, fantastic MB. MB, how's it going, man?
It's going pretty well, man. Another day in paradise.
Another day in paradise. I say it all the time, and I do not mean paradise when I'm meaning it.
I'm doing well. I don't mean it like most use that phrase. Most of the time.
Yeah. I mean it sarcastically 100% of the time that I use it. Man, your boy got shingles, man. That's supposed to be like 50 and up. Oh, no, I'm serious. I actually have shingles. So if I make a grimace in this episode, it truly does ebb and flow, and it's right here on my ribs. And I'm gonna try not to make faces or sounds, but I'm dealing with it, man. Another day in paradise, baby.
You hit 36 and start falling apart, my man.
I'm trying to tell you, 35 was a rough one, right? Caught pneumonia, sepsis. Now it's just on to the next. Now, hey, how about some shingles? Had a callus on my foot. Luckily, it was just a callus. They shaved that off. She said I can just get a pedicure every once in a while. I'm gonna start doing that. Clear coat paint. But yeah, man, it's been rough. But I have been getting back on the physical fitness train. I bought a weighted jump rope. That thing is a beast. I'm on it, but I have some ailments.
Yeah, I hear
Grin
you.
and bear it.
I love my tonal. I will promote that thing all day, every day.
Yeah, you do. It actually seems like a great device, though. So
yeah,
shout out to them. Maybe they'll sponsor the channel at some point.
yeah, I need to get in there. I mean, LeBron's got some commercials. I think Serena.
It's hard to compete with LeBron.
Serena Williams is on there.
Yeesh, Serena. I just get. We don't want to turn to like a straight man podcast, but she looking crazy. You're looking like Lil Kim, man. Go ahead. We don't want to dive into that. That's dicey territory.
I think it's Martellus Bennett who's on some recent ones, but they got a little NFL, a little tennis, a little NBA action going on in their advertisement. So yeah, definitely love the tone.
No TB12?
No,
I like something he'd be signed up for.
Yeah. But anyways, we got a good show lined up for you guys tonight. We're gonna hit it off with some Braves action. They're gonna kick off the season next week, so we got a couple things to talk about there. We'll get into some Hawks, a little bit of Falcons. And we got some good college bonus content there at the end for those true listeners that stick it with us for the whole time. So let's get into it.
I didn't read the comments, so I would give my man a shout out, but yeah, jumped on in, man. So the Braves, they have announced opening day starter pitching, obviously. Mr. Spencer Strider, the stash himself. I had a conversation with Dion in the fall, right? During the playoffs, actually. And we were talking about whether Spencer Strider or Max Fried was our number one ace. And I told him that it was more of a 1A, 1B for me, and that Spencer Strider was a couple strikeouts or maybe a playoff performance away from being 1A. The Braves organization seems to have labeled him as such. Being a former pitcher, where do you rank those two gentlemen? Does he deserve to be our opening day starter?
I think he's earned the opening day starter role. I think so. As far as being 1A, 1B, man, it's hard because there's two completely different skill sets. Max has been doing it for a lot longer. I mean, this is what, Spencer's second full season, maybe his third year that he'll have gotten pitching experience, but second full season in the rotation. And I mean, he surely looks the part. He worked on a new pitch this offseason. So the biggest knock against Spencer Strider has been he only had really two pitches, a slider and a fastball. And man, that fastball is gas. But
all gas, no brakes, baby.
Yeah. And then occasionally last year we saw him throw a changeup. I think he averaged like one or two changeups an outing, so very, very rare. But this season this off season he's worked on a curveball, which when he's used it in spring training, it is absolutely nasty. And if that pitch is as good as it has shown to be in limited action, there's no reason he should not be a front runner for a Cy Young. He should have, honestly, in my opinion, won it or at least been a finalist last year. But he's got the strikeout record for the Braves. I mean, he's phenomenal, and he only seems to get better. He's still super young, super talented. I'm excited. I do think that if we're going to have success this year, Spencer Strider has to be that lockdown, shutdown ace. Max Fried has to do the same. Charlie Morton has to give us some good innings, at least keep us in games. And Chris Sale has to be kind of in that same, give us some deep, put some innings up, keep us in ball games, because I'm really, really worried about that fifth rotation spot right now.
There's a lot of people who can slide in there, though. And I think Chris Sale is the wild card. He's not that fifth spot, obviously. You named him 4. I think he could climb. We have not signed Max Fried to an extension. And I think that Spencer Strider is going to be the proving reason why. I still think we keep him, right? But after this season, I do think he's fully into that 2 zone. You were saying that they're 2 different skill sets. I agree upon that, but they are both pitchers. And one of them, I think, will get more wins and be more dominant than the other. Where dominance, I guess, in pitching terms, has traditionally been looked at as strikeouts. I'm talking about dominance as far as success, like wins. ERA. I think he's going to be a dog this year. He had a 0.00 ERA in spring training. It is spring training, right? He won't maintain that beyond a certain point during the regular season. Someone's going to end up getting hit. But if he can maintain a semblance of that, yeah, I think he's definitely going to be a Cy Young candidate. And I'm hoping that Max Fried just makes this like a race to the finish, to where now we have this big decision to make. Like, how much money are we going to have to give Max Fried? Give him all of it. Look, give him the money, especially when we win this chip. I want to keep him, but if I had to choose between the two at this point, that's why I'm calling Spencer Strider my 1A future 1 solo, because I want to keep him. I mean, he's the youth. His arm is a cannon, and now he's just learning new pitches. I mean, he's going to be a dangerous man for many, many, many years to come.
Yeah, we have Strider locked up for, I think, 6+ years. So we're good there as long as he stays healthy and continues to do what he's shown over the last, year and a half that he's capable of. As far as Max Fried goes, I'm with you. I mean, there is no salary cap in baseball, so show that man the money. I mean, the Battery, Liberty Media, they're making money hand over fist when it comes to the Braves. I know they're hesitant to dip too far into the luxury tax, but at this point, I feel like the fans and the support that the team has gained over the last couple of years has proven that it will pay dividends. They have to be smart with those investments. Don't go out and just hand money out like candy, but if they invest in the right pieces, if they pay that luxury tax, they're gonna make it back in, sold out crowds, merchandising, TV revenue, like all of it, because the support is there. And this city, when we have championship caliber teams, we show out.
Show out, yeah. I remember. I mean, you were there going to those World Series run, going up to the Battery. Not even going in the game. Me and you went to one game, but just being in the Battery in that space during that run, man, it was incredible. Like it was packed. Every place that could be filled was filled. And yeah, that's what they can count on, and that's money, right? That's the goal of a business, is to make money. You make money by having the right players. You have a winning organization. I think Max Fried can be a big part of that. I do think he's third in line for cash, behind Big Ronnie, right? I mean, he's under contract. I do think he's going to play himself into a bigger deal before Max Fried does, or maybe they both play themselves into a deal. And then like a 2B behind Max Fried, I think I would say Ozzy, if he performs well. With all the discussions that's been around this man this year of how he is not a top 10 second baseman, but also a top 20 player in the league, is kind of bananas. So I think he's ready to perform as well. There has been talk, I think you've said it at least once, that Ozzy is he's the captain in the clubhouse right now. Right? He's the leader, little man on deck, because he is a small fella. But we need him, especially if he's batting like he can. So we're gonna see what happens with the Braves. I am very optimistic about how things go. I mentioned Chris Sale. I did want to just finish up on that. By the end of the year, man, if he can stay healthy and he brings that juice that he had in his best years in Boston, he could be two. He could be he could replace Max Fried, because both of them are on their last year of the contract. I think we signed Chris Sale to a 1-year deal, and Max is in his last year. Ideally, we sign them both, but it's going to come down to the performance. If we have to choose one or the other, right? If there are money obligations in other places, it's going to come down to that, choosing one of them. I'm sure. I'm confident.
Double A's MO has been trade for the guy that they want, and this year it was Chris Sale. Last year it was last year Matt Olson or Sean Murphy? Last year was Sean Murphy.
Last year was Sean Murphy.
The year before was Matt Olson. But his MO has been to lock in on a guy, go get him, sign or trade for him, sign him, do whatever. But as soon as they get here, lock him into a deal. So Chris Sale, as soon as they traded for him, they extended him. I don't remember the terms of the contract, but I think it's at least a 4-year deal. So he's going to be here for a while unless we decide to cut bait. And if we decide to cut bait, it's because of performance, not lack of dollars to allocate there. I will say it will be I think it's a tall ask to think he will contribute on the same level as Max Fried this year. Now, if he does that, we're going to have a pretty dangerous rotation. But I still think he's middle tier, and if he's middle tier, that's acceptable for us. Like Charlie Morton, old faithful, right? Like he's not going to go out and blow people away, but you're going to win games because he's not going to just blow crazy leads, right? He's going to go, he's going to grind, he's going to get outs. You may see some runners on base. He may let some runs in, but that's why we have the most potent lineup in all of baseball, because we can put up runs and we can make up for some of those deficiencies.
And maybe that's more of an accurate comparison of who he could potentially slide in and replace, is Charlie Morton. So Charlie Morton is 40. Chris Sale is 34. He'll be 35. Hey, you're behind the dogs. Whoop, whoop. He only has a 2-year deal. I knew it was short. I thought it was 1, but it's not 4. It's 2. So they don't have that much faith that they extended him long term. that is what they did with everyone else, right? Sean Murphy, Matt Olson, everybody that we brought in. Even the homegrown players are signed for multi-year deals, not just the two. So I do think he has something to prove. But you have a strong point. Max Fried is a dog. He's an ace. I think he was injured a little bit, and maybe I'm unfortunately floating into that what have you done me lately? What have you done for me lately crowd. But yeah, even if it goes Spencer, Max, and then Chris Sale, right? Charlie can't pitch forever. I love to have him in a rotation for a long time, but
yeah,
we'll see what happens. Even if he goes to 4 from 3, I still want to be a part of the team. But I want a lot of success for Chris Sale. I remember him going crazy during it might have was it their world it wasn't their World Series run. They haven't won in a while, but he went crazy in a playoff series where he was just dominant. And I want that. I've seen it. I want it. All right. So we'll see what happens from there.
Yeah. So first game, opening day is gonna be Thursday up in Philly. And so we're starting it off 3-game series on the road against our unfortunate rivals. We got to get it done.
It used to be the Mets, all right?
The Mets are a joke.
They're a joke. Mismanaged, a waste of money.
Yeah, but I think we got to start this year off kind of sending a message, get a couple wins, take 2 out of 3 in Philly, and come back home and get it started at Truist. But I've got high hopes.
I agree. The thing that I would add there is that over the last 2 years, during the regular season, we've had a lot of success against Philadelphia. We clinched on their field last year. All that regular season talk is great, and I do agree. We need to start off hot and beat them. Send a clear message like, no, yeah, you had a little playoff success, but y'all still not in our league. But it's gonna be in October that we need to beat them because I mean it feels destined at this point. We want to win the chip. It's not even the Dodgers at this point that I'm worried about. Right? They will be a tough out, but it's Philly. We have to beat Philly. We have to get over that hump because it's been 2 years in a row that they have stood in the way of our dynasty being fully realized.
Yeah, and I don't think it's that I'm not worried about the Dodgers. It is more so the fact that at this point, you do have to wonder if the Phillies are in our head a little bit with the way that the last 2 years have shaken out in the playoffs. So we need to get that monkey off our back more so than anything else. And I'm still a little worried about running into the Dodgers. Which
it's not a lack of worry, but it's exactly what you said. It's that monkey out their back. Philly has been the problem. It hasn't been the Dodgers, right? We haven't even made it to the Dodgers. They haven't made it to us either. They've been out at the same rounds of the playoffs that we have in the last 2 years. But if we can't beat Philly, we won't meet up with the Dodgers. It just feels like that's destined to happen again. Yeah. We're gonna win the division. The Phillies are gonna be, the highest wild card team. They're gonna beat whoever they run into first in a dominant fashion, and then they're gonna come to us. We have to beat them at that point. Then we'll worry about the Dodgers and the NLCS.
Yeah, absolutely.
If I could write the script for the season.
Call up Rob Manfred. Get it locked in.
I got his number.
So I don't want to dive too deep into the Dodgers, but I saw a clip of a podcast. Your boy Mookie Betts does a podcast, and he had old Brave Dansby Swanson on there. And I will say, just anecdote, the more I see Mookie, and he's always been one of those like, oh, I hate him because he's so good. The more I see him and his personality come out outside of the game of baseball, the more I like him. I got mad respect for that guy. But hearing him talk to Dansby about that playoff run was kind of cool, and his recanting of Tyler Matzek in that big, what was it, game 4, game 5, where they've got runners in scoring position. I think there was no outs. Tyler Matzek comes in and just mows them down. And
were we at that game?
No, we were not.
Okay.
And Mookie was just saying that night, Tyler, like everyone knew what was coming. Everyone knew the heater was coming, but he was throwing 1,000 miles an hour, like just straight gas. They couldn't catch up with it.
He's back to full form now, right? I know
Tyler?
he hasn't done Tyler.
So I've only watched one spring training game and he didn't pitch. I've listened to portions of spring training games, and going into the season right now, I don't have Bally Sports, so I'm not really sure how I'm going to watch. But I do enjoy listening to it on the radio, so I may just try doing the radio thing. But 680 The Fan has an app, and if you download the app, they're one of the official stations for the Atlanta Braves. And so they've had all of their spring training games broadcast. So I've listened to some, and he's done well. I mean, he's been one of the brighter spots in our bullpen, but I still think he has a little bit of ways to go to just get into that confident pitching. You know, it changes when it's for, actual wins and losses and, real meaning. Spring training, it's glorified scrimmages.
I don't even think it's glorified. It's just scrimmage.
Yeah.
Scrimmage ball, right? You got your starting pitchers out there for an inning and a half, 2 innings.
Well,
you can't say that that's real.
As spring goes on, they get deeper and deeper because the rosters, when they first get to camp, pretty much everyone's there, and then they start trimming it as they send guys to AAA camp and so on and so forth. So now they're down to just a handful of people. I think everyone that's there today is going to be on the opening day roster. So
yeah,
as that happens,
but as far as pitching, they're looking for like that 4th, 5th guy now, right? Like,
well, I
Spencer's
think
pretty much done.
I think they're pretty much locked into it at this point.
Who's the 5th guy? Because I thought that was still under debate, up for debate.
What's his name? He was brought in this offseason. Is it Angel? I'm thinking of Angel Hernandez, but that's not it.
Yeah.
It was someone that they brought in this offseason that could be a starter or a bullpen arm. And they sent Bryce Elder to AAA camp. They sent AJ Smith-Shawver. They sent Oscar Yanoa. So, I mean, there's no one really else there to take that 5th spot. I think he pitched today, to be honest. Ronaldo Lopez, thank you. Yeah.
He's wearing a Red Sox or a White Sox hat in his picture. Travis d'Arnaud is still wearing his Mets hat. You got to get that updated on Google, Travis. Come on, man. You've been a Brave for a long time, bro.
Yeah.
Get it together.
You said Ronaldo Lopez? Yeah. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. So, he's the 5th. He's going to start the season in the 5th spot. We'll see how that goes. But our pitching in spring has been terrible outside of really Spencer Strider, Max Fried. Chris Sale had a couple good outings, but he's been a little shaky the last couple. Charlie Morton's been a little bit rocky, and
I wouldn't even pitch Charlie, man. He's an old dog, man. Let that man go out there and hunt when it's really time to play.
I think Raisel Iglesias gave up like 4 runs today. He had a pretty
a huge fan of that guy, man.
He's gonna be our closer for now.
Yeah, but why? You know?
Who else are you going to do it with?
Well, we've had a couple of candidates that were successful in the most recent years. Former Dodger came in. Now he's with the Red Sox, I believe. Can't think of his name right now. Caribbean fella, had a nice beard on him.
He was from
He
Curacao.
pitched well against us, and pitched well against us in the NLCS a couple years ago, and then he came to our team, helped us beat the Dodgers the year after that.
He recorded his 300th save last year.
So we clearly know who he is. We're not going to have another name episode. We're moving beyond this guy before we get trapped in that. Last week we couldn't remember a single name.
Yeah. So, anyways, exciting stuff. Braves baseball 100%. Next week.
Mm-hmm.
So, you had mentioned wanting to discuss some Hawks. There were some pretty fabulous highlights that hit the interwebs as a local kid, Antman, decided to absolutely posterize John Collins, and at the same time, almost like to the minute, Jalen Johnson said, "Hold my beer," and jumped over Austin Reeves.
Man, let's start off with John Collins, former Hawk, not having a whole lot of success out there in Utah. Getting dunked on like that by Antman has been the epitome of his season. I still wish that man the best, right? I think he was. I've heard a lot of his interviews. He seems like a well-to-do guy, great guy. And you root for people like that. I was hoping that he would have a lot of success in Utah. 20-10. Go back to what he did his second year with the Hawks. He has not done that. Far from it. And then Antman putting that thing on him, especially like I think he left the game hurt. Right? When you get injured from being dunked on, bro, that's probably like the most awful of looks. So I want to see him do better, have some success out there in Utah. Antman, local kid. There was a question asked on the air on 99 The Game yesterday, I think it was. They were saying, the trade rumors about Trae are back. Would you trade him for Anthony Edwards?
That's a hard one, man.
Yes, but it would be tough, right? I want to win the deal, but I would do that. I would, player for player. If it was 1-for-1, I wouldn't do it. Just because he has that defensive acumen. Like, not only did he have the dunk of the year this week, but he also had like the block of the year last week. Like, he's just a dog. What he said after there was a clip of him post game, and they showed him the clip of the dunk. It was the most like Atlanta thing that he could say. Well, I'll post it. I won't say it. I'll post what he said. Oh, but switching to Atlanta sports, Jalen Johnson's dunk was right there with him. CBS Sports put out a top 10 dunks of the year this year, and he was like 8. I was like, dog, that's got to be top 5. And it definitely beat the other 4 because Anthony Edwards was number 1, and no debate there. He put all of himself on Austin Reeves. Incredible dunk, right? There are many prognosticators that are naming him. I know he had some injuries this season. So I think he's going to get to I believe it's a 52 game mark where you had to hit a certain amount. This is the first season where you had to hit a certain amount of games played to be eligible for award season, if you will. I think he's going to hit that, but there are people who are saying he's going to be the most improved player of the year. And I won't disagree with that. Coming from where he was last year with, I don't know what he was averaging, 4 minutes a game. to where he is now, a lot more minutes, but his production has been crazy. And not to continue to slight John Collins, but what an upgrade at that position he has been, right? He's a much better facilitator. He's shooting a better percentage. He is a highlight reel. John Collins definitely had that. But the last time we had that, I would say, was the playoff run that we had, where he boomed on Joel Embiid and put that on a shirt. It's a legendary moment, man. That'll live forever. But Jalen Johnson seems like he's the future, right? Then it comes out that the man sprained his ankle in that Lakers game. Halfway through the fourth quarter, the Hawks are down by 30, and he's still in the game. And during his time in the game, he is injured, ankle injury, again, because that's what injured him the first time. And we know from some of the greatest in the league, whether it be Trae Young, Steph Curry, ankle injuries are nothing to fool with, right? You need ankles a lot in basketball. So being down 30, now people are starting to input negative assessments of Quin Snyder. Like, why is one of your pieces of the future in the game down 30 with 7 minutes to go in the fourth quarter? And he basically said he oopsed it, right? He sent in somebody around that time to replace him, but in the time where he was sitting on the bench, or not even the bench, the check-in area to substitute, he hurt himself. So a lot of things in that. I wanted to get your take on Jalen Johnson, where he fits. I think I know where you are, but let's give the people a fresh update on Jalen Johnson and his future as a Hawk, and then your assessment of Quin Snyder so far as a coach.
Ooh, a lot to unpack there.
Unpack it, baby.
So as far as Jalen Johnson goes, I think it's kind of funny that honestly, he deserves every award he gets, but to say he's most improved, I see it from a stat standpoint, but we never really saw what he was truly capable of because he didn't see the floor. So it's kind of funny to me that he's going to win that title, most improved, when I don't know that he really improved. He just got more opportunity, right?
Well, that's the thing in and of
Yeah.
itself, right?
Yeah.
Going 0 to 100 is an improvement.
Yeah. But needless to say,
fair point though.
We saw spurts of it, and he's absolutely electric. I've seen several media members talk about how he is the next great all-star for the Atlanta Hawks.
Wow.
Really putting him, at that stage. Trae really should be considered, our all-star. But that would give us 2 all-stars, right? Trae and Jalen, and it really was what was supposed to be oh man, it's gonna be one of them nights with the names.
John Collins sucks.
Not John Collins, DJ.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, he came in as an all-star from San Antonio, but he just hasn't really lived up to that here. So I think that's interesting. I do agree with that take that Jalen Johnson, is a pinnacle piece to the franchise future. I just want to touch on something with John Collins because you brought him up. I honestly don't think he was really ever the same player after he got suspended for PEDs that one year. And that could have been the fact that we put more talent around him, so he kind of became overshadowed. And previous to that, he was really all that we had. Doing highlight reel dunks, making Sports Center top 10s. But it seemed around the same time he had that, suspension. After that, he just kind of fell off. So that's my take on John Collins and Jalen. As far as Quin Snyder, I mean, we kind of touched on it in previous talks. This is the fourth coach the Hawks have had in, just as many years. And the product on the floor really hasn't improved. Offensively, this team has played better than years past, but our defense, as we've said many times, is awful. So I don't know how much I want to put on Quin Snyder for the success and the failures of this team, but I will say, it is a bad look when the only healthy, semi-healthy stud you have on the floor, is still in late game getting completely blown out, and he happens to re-injure, an already ailing ankle. I mean, that's not a good look for Quin. But I also see the standpoint of they're battling out there to just remain in a play-in tournament spot. And these guys are young. A lot of them haven't really played much together this year because we've had so many injuries lately that we've got a lot of new people in places getting significant minutes. I could see the argument, play them, let them, build on something. Maybe they can take something positive into the next game because they were on a 6-game road trip, and they got to start winning some games if they want to remain in the playoffs. So I could see that argument. I do think it's a bad look. It is very unfortunate because we lost our other forward, Sadiq Bey, to a season-ending injury. I don't know who's left at this point to put on the floor. We'll be lucky if we see Trae back on the floor this year at this rate.
At this rate, yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it's a bad look, but I don't want to, and I don't want to give Quin a complete pass for the decision. I do think it's very acceptable to be critical of that decision. But at the same time, when you look at this team and this season as a whole, I don't want to be quick to blame it all on Quin Snyder because we did that with Nate. We did that with Lloyd Pierce. And the results were by and large the same. Actually, the years Lloyd Pierce and, the half season that Nate coached, we were more successful. So
I think there's a lot of credence to what you just said, right? I don't want to blame it on him either. I'm not calling for that man's job at all, right? I do think that with Trae being out, there has been a major hole that he has struggled to fill. And I don't think the way that he's gone about it has been the way that I would have gone about it. So the Jalen Johnson injury is a big deal to me, right? Why is he in there down 30? I get it. Maybe Jalen wanted to be in there, sure. But you couple that with Adrian Griffin, and that's just such an anomaly to me, dog. Like, that man is instant offense. And now he's hurt again because of G League play. Who knows what happened that he just fell out of grace with Quin Snyder, but I don't like it. I don't like it. He's a young player. I mean, are you just sitting him because he's young? And is that why you made this point? And fingers crossed this is what's happening, right? Quin didn't he finished the second half of the season last year. We didn't see a whole lot of Jalen Johnson. So a little bit. We've seen a lot of Jalen Johnson this year. Now, John Collins is gone, but maybe John Collins is gone because he saw something in Jalen Johnson. And maybe that means that Adrian Griffin's just earning his due, I guess. But that's one of those things. Like I said it about the Falcons and the quarterback situation. Give me an answer and tell me why. And then I'm cool with it, right? I'm not in a decision-making position. I would, as a fan, as a supporter who does spend money. Not a ton, right? But I spend money. I would like to know the thinking in not playing a player who had success his rookie year, and now he's just gone. He's not in the rotation. He went to the G League. He had some success there. He's since gotten hurt, but I don't anticipate him being back. What is that about, right? The other part of that around Quin is I'm not calling for his job, but could it be, and there is also, put all of my preferences in there, my asterisks, just dot them in there. Um, the talent level, especially with Trae out, is not great. Can it be a talent level impacting his success? Yes. But I'm compounding that with the coaching decisions to say that maybe there's something else there. And we could, as an organization, have just caught an unlucky break for a third time in a coaching scenario, right? Who knows? I hope that's not the case, right? He had a lot of success with the Jazz. He also had two of the best players in the league at that time. Another question. I know we don't want to spend all our time on basketball. The Hawks are in the 10th place. They're 10th place in the play-in spot. Nationally, we're just being like not even bashed, but just disregarded. Like, they're trash. Why do we want to talk about the Hawks? We have one superstar who is hurt, hasn't played. And then before he was hurt, we had this experiment going on where they were still having a level of success, but they were still play-in bound. Why isn't the same critique given to LeBron James, Anthony Davis for the Lakers, and or another GOAT, Steph Curry and Klay Thompson? Though, I think Klay is still finding his rhythm or his comfort with injury, right? With his health. I think he's healthy, but maybe his injuries have put him in a position where he's just not exactly the same player. He can still shoot the lights out though, and he ain't shooting the lights out. Draymond obviously missed some games, but you have these two perennial franchises and teams with multiple Hall of Famers. They get some flack. I don't think they get, well, maybe they do. So that's the question. Do the Hawks get more or less flack than the Lakers and Golden State, who are in very, very similar positions from a record standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, I think brand has a lot to do with it, right? If Nike put out a sneaker that was just crap, and let's say Skechers put out a sneaker that was just crap, you're gonna be more likely to really bash the Sketcher than you are the Nike. You're gonna give more pass because they have a history,
level
right?
of success.
Yeah, they have a brand, they have a reputation that they've built that you're like, okay, well, everyone makes a mistake now and then, or everyone has a bad game or a bad season or whatever. You're just more willing to give them a pass. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying that when you are in the conversation of GOAT, you're going to get more leeway. This is a reason why he gets every foul call, why he can flop and get the call. It's just, there is something about having that brand, having that reputation. And the Hawks just haven't earned that yet. And I don't really feel like you should have to earn that in sports. It should be a level playing field. There should be no bias. Things should be decided by, how you perform and strictly objectively. But there is a human aspect to it. There are human referees involved. There are, unconscious biases involved. There's a lot that go into it. And I think that plays into the reason why Anthony Davis and LeBron James get more of a pass. I think Klay Thompson and Steph Curry, they've won what 3-4 championships together,
Yeah.
and I do think we're age and past injuries are catching up to them. They don't have the teams that they did in the past, so I do think that they are given a little bit more leeway because of the championships and the past, and people still remember that. But I do think that it's reasonable to ask the question and it's reasonable to criticize. I personally, I mean, I'm not a Lakers fan. I kind of they're on
Really?
my, they're on my least liked franchises. So I may have some bias in this statement, but I am overly critical of LeBron and AD, aka street clothes, because they can't get it done, right? They got one championship in a bubble season that was unlike anything else. You have to put an asterisk next to it in my book. It's not a real championship. Take that to the bank, Theo.
I bet you he hasn't even subscribed.
Yeah. I mean,
Demo, shout out Demo for the subscription. Appreciate that, my brother. I think you're absolutely right. And I don't negate what I was trying to say, but your explanation of it has to be spot on. I mean, I don't have a counter argument to that. That was it, right? They get a pass because of their track record, which makes sense. But then to your other point, like, should it? No, but it is what it is, right?
Such is life.
We'll see
right?
what happens. Such is life. I was gonna say that they've had a couple of failing seasons consecutively, but they went to the West Finals last year, ran into a very dominant Nuggets team, so
and honestly,
they made it there.
I was pretty surprised by how well they played the Nuggets. Like every game, even though that series was short, every single one of those games was a nail biter. Played to the last second, and I kind of dismissed them going into it. Like, Lakers are trash.
Sweep.
Yeah,
get your brooms up.
LeBron's cooked. He's too old, right? But no, they played the lights out. I mean, when it came down to the big stage, they showed up. Can't deny that.
The Denver Nuggets do.
Well,
they denied that they showed up, but they were the eventual champions.
Denver.
Right? I mean, I still think they are a very, very tough out right now. Right? I think they're still probably the best team in the West, even if they're not number one record-wise right now.
Denver was the better team, flat out.
Yeah.
And they lost to the better team. But the point I was trying to make was they stayed in it. They made it a series, an entertaining one, right? The outcome did not fall in their favor, but I didn't even give them a shot to be half as competitive as they were. So
I think I went Romostradamus on that and called that Western Conference Finals before the playoffs started. But I don't want to beat, but we'll leave that there. Yeah, man, I'm curious to see what happens with the Hawks. I know this year is if they're in the play-in, I would want Trae to sit. No, I wouldn't. I would want him to play. In my mind, in my heart, I would maybe one of the two. I'm not sure which one is talking right now, but I would want him to sit just to see what else we have, just to see if DJ can turn it on. My intentions are fully to keep Trae Young, but I would like to see if DJ still has. I think he does, but he hasn't been in a position to have to show it that he has that dog in him in a while. At least since he's played with Trae Young, right? As a Spur, you have a choice. They got a bunch of those same bums. I want to stop slandering these professional athletes. They're better at sports than me. But on a professional level, these same bums that Wemby's out there with now, with like the second to worst record in the West with. So we'll see what happens, but I don't even know if I can say I'm optimistic.
I don't remember who they were playing. It was last week, but the game went down to the final shot, and somebody I'd never seen play for the Hawks before was the one taking the final shot, and he bricked it. They had a chance to win. I think we ended up losing by 2. And that game, DJ put up 30 plus, and at the end of the game, he was knocking down threes. To even put us in a position to even win the game. So I do think he has that dog. I don't know if we can put a system together that lets him and Trae both eat. And maybe we're looking at it wrong, and it's really the fourth and fifth piece that is going to flip the switch. But I have a tough time seeing a world where they coexist and we're as successful as we want to be.
Yeah.
I did see some comments, or I heard some comments on the radio where basically the premise is if we see Trae Young play again this year, that there is smoke and credence to the idea of the Hawks moving on from Trae this summer. But if he sits for the remainder of the year, that's a telltale sign that we're going to hold on to him and that he's here for the long haul. I don't know that I fully follow that logic, but I do think at this point it would be a mistake to ship out Trae Young. You led with, would you trade Trae for Antman? The only reason why I would do this, and I've told you this in the past, I'm a homer. Like I support high school athletics, college athletics, you name it. I like to see the guys that played high school ball in the state go on and be successful in their professional careers, no matter where they play. But Antman, he played high school ball in Atlanta, played for the University of Georgia. I would bring him home for just the sake of bringing him home, and the fact that he's the caliber of player that you're willing to swap Trae for. But other than that, I think it would be a pretty big mistake to move on from Trae at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I don't think there's a lot of other players that I would trade for him. That homer aspect of it is a part of it. I would want to win the deal. I want him and maybe not Rudy Gobert, but Karl Anthony Towns, right? I see his trajectory going up, 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 up. And I think Trae still has some room to go. Like he's closer to his ceiling than I think Anthony Edwards is. It would still be a really tough decision because there's nobody in the league that's better than Trae Young and what Trae Young does. So it wouldn't even be like a blink and done instantly. It'd be something I had to think about.
Look at the total package.
I got some recency bias, right? Trae's been sitting. Anthony Edwards has been balling, and we eat the same chicken here in the A. Man, we both go to JJ's fish and chicken. Man, we had that for my birthday on Friday. We had some JJ wings, so it's near and dear to my heart, man. So it would be a conversation to be had. Anyone else, I probably wouldn't even consider it, right? I don't know who in the league. All right, Luca. Right.
Don't
Reverse
say
that
it.
one. Joker. Nah, yeah, definitely Joker. But it's not a whole lot of other people. Like they would say, I think a lot of people would say Jason Tatum. He's a dog, but that same year that Trae, and this wasn't last year because he balled out in the playoffs last year. We faced a very good, very competitive Boston team, took them to 6. There were games in that series where Jason Tatum didn't show up, but he definitely ain't show up in the Eastern Conference Finals last year. What went into that, I don't know, but he wasn't there, so I wouldn't do him over Trae. I don't know. Trae Young, my guy. I want Trae to stay in the city, and I think the point that they're looking at in regards to play him and he goes versus sit him and he stays is, you want your diamonds on the shelf, right? You want people to be able to buy them. Make sure he's showing well after coming back from the hand injury.
Surgery and everything that comes with it.
Yeah.
I mean, he is a shooter.
Yeah,
It is
100%.
pretty big deal. Yeah. Yeah, the one name you didn't mention is arguably one of my favorite players. He is my favorite player. Giannis.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love the Greek Freak.
He's definitely up there. Joel Embiid will have to be in that conversation as well. I don't think that he's as strong as Giannis, maybe muscularly, but his injury history is not great. Yeah, man. Trae Young for president, 2024.
Yeah, so this is completely off topic, but you brought it up that is it JJ's Chicken and Wings or Chicken and Fish?
Fish and chicken. Yeah.
Fish and chicken. All right, so we'll have to drop this in the description. But I know you saw the video I sent of the Keith Lee parody guy in Atlanta doing
I do remember seeing that.
Yeah, so we'll drop that one in the description so y'all can check that one out. That's hilarious.
I mean, just to stay on a tangent for a second, the way that they disrespected Keith Lee, like to not necessarily run my man out the city, but to start making all these excuses. He was just pulling up, sending other people inside to get the food and tasting the food, providing an evaluation. What if your service is trash? Get your service together. That was something he ran into at a lot of places. If your food is coming out slow, making it cold, hire more people, right? I think Atlanta specifically has been in this place of just being content with, oh no, we're Atlanta. Well, we get celebrities all the time. They'll wait. They can wait just like the normal Joe. No, man. I want my food. I want it to be delicious, and I want it in a timely and respectable fashion. That's what Keith Lee was asking for. They couldn't give it to my man and started sending death threats to his family. What is that about, bro? That's wild.
It is wild. But I will say one of the things that, I don't want to go into this. I am a Keith Lee fan, personally. I like what he does. Okay. I like what he stands for. But he was upset because one of the places that he went to found out basically who he was and wanted to give him preferential treatment. And he's like, "No, I'm not about that. I'm just an average person. I don't want treatment because of who I am. I want the genuine experience." And so, to what you were saying about, timely, I don't even think it was about that. It's just about courtesy and how people are. And I do think when people, saw his reviews, or, our instincts, if we let emotion just rule what we do and say, our instincts, when someone kind of comes at us or we perceive they're coming at us, is to be defensive. And I think that had a lot to do with the responses of those owners. But when you're a business owner, you can't afford to act emotionally. You got to be responsible and really think logically, because especially in the social media world that we live in, you say something and it's taken a certain way, I mean, you're straight up canceled. Like, people will ruin you. So I do think it's healthy to, when situations like that happen, to like stop, take a deep breath, like step away from the situation and really kind of let the emotions die down and then respond rationally and objectively, right? So I get it from both sides. I hate that that was his experience, because I think Atlanta has a lot of great dining options. It's a great city for foodies, but there is, a certain level of complacency that exists out there with some of these family or locally owned businesses that that they hold themselves on a higher pedestal than they should. And
I mean, it's even to some of the bigger names in that space as well, right? Just because they've had that success, now they do put themselves on a pedestal. One thing that I saw was like, "Where's the lie?" I kept seeing that all over Twitter. Where's the lie? He's like, "Yeah, this is this." They specifically to the point that you were making, like, yeah, they found out it was me, and that's not what I was wanting to. So it seems like they just cater to upscale customers. Where's the lie? I'm giving you that same money. You're not charging them more, right? Maybe they give you some shine. I'm sure they do, or maybe they don't, right? Every celebrity in Atlanta, there's a lot of celebrities here. Every celebrity in Atlanta that goes to a restaurant is not throwing that on their gram or on TikTok or wherever and giving you pub on that. So why should I? And if they're not paying a different price, why shouldn't I get the exact same service? That's something I think he was a proponent of. That's why I'm a supporter as well. Um, some restaurants, I'm sure, did get on their game. Others did not, and that's where the death threats had to come in, because they still want to have success. They don't want to lose their business because they have lowered their expectations and standards. You remember that Mad Libs or Mad TV? Yeah. Lowered expectations. You remember that?
yeah.
Yeah, man. But they've done that, right? And they want us to lower our expectations as the consumer. I'm not doing that. Giving you all this money. Restaurants are expensive than a mug right now.
Oh
I
yeah.
want delicious food. I also want top tier service. Right? I want Chick-fil-A level service everywhere I go.
It's my pleasure.
Anything less, yes, my pleasure, me. Right? At all times, man. But that's not really sports related. We can get back on track. I'm sorry I took us on that tangent.
I will say at least we were better than Oakland.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But Oakland has a lot of problems, not just in the food scene.
The best thing to ever come out of Oakland is Marshawn Lynch. That's the list. Good things out of Oakland. Marshawn Lynch.
Facts.
Now, I've never been to Oakland, so I can't trash Oakland. And I don't know that I'd ever visit. Right? Maybe. I don't even have a football team there anymore. I don't. They discredited Oakland a little bit, or disrespected, not discredited, but devalued in my eyes. I'm like, I'm not going to a Raiders game.
I think it's
I'm going to Oakland for.
I think it's one of those, the franchise disrespected the city, but the city disrespected and took for granted the franchises in the way that
They were one of the most loyal fan bases in the NFL.
But
I wouldn't agree with that part.
I'm not talking about the fan base. I'm talking about, it was the same issue of why the Battery exists today, right? You go to where Turner Field was before everything that Georgia State's done, and this is going on way of a tangent, but
we out here now.
It wasn't the best part of town. You had to worry about cars getting broke into, stuff getting stolen, right? It just wasn't an area of town you wanted to hang out. There weren't really no restaurants or anything to keep you in the area. And that's kind of where Oakland is, right? It's not necessarily a safe place to be. You know, graffiti everywhere. The city's trashed. You have a really big homeless epidemic problem there. It's just the city's not taken care of. The people there aren't taken care of. And the franchise saw it and was like, is this really where we want to invest our money? Because that's what you're doing when you operate a franchise or any business. You're investing in that area. And they said, no, we'd rather take our money to Vegas.
So I think that's a big problem. Felt the same way about the Braves. If you're going to invest in the area, you have to invest in the area, right? Georgia State has had success with that exact same area. That area was up and coming even when the Braves were there. Now, were there some?
But you got to understand, the Braves wanted to build what is the Battery in that area and got denied by the state. The state did not, the city of Atlanta did not want to come in and do anything to help them grow. Now, once the Braves pulled out and went to Cobb County, you're left with that stadium, you're left with the land. You get, new people in office every so many years, and people change their tune because they're kind of forced to, or it just becomes a wasteland, right? And an opportunity existed for Georgia State to come in and basically do what the Braves wanted to do, revitalize that area. It's unfortunate that it happened in that sequence, but sometimes hands have to be forced. And
yeah, I think hands do have to be forced, but I think that as long as they have been down there, there hadn't been a lot of, from what I understand, it was more in the recent years that they were pushing to make this development, right? Like I heard at one point they were trying to talk to Hard Rock about coming into the project to build out that space. Right? And they didn't get Hard Rock up there in Cobb, or I guess that's technically, is that Cobb or Fulton? I don't know.
it's Cobb.
Up in the Battery, right? They left because they didn't want to have a hand in revitalizing that area. I think they pulled a Freddie Freeman, man, and I'm still a supporter. But they had an opportunity to do something there. They chose to go the quicker, not even easier, the quicker route to money. That's exactly what the Raiders did. They chose the fastest route to money. Um, that's the best interest of the franchise, I guess. But when you are borrowing the name of a city to promote your franchise, that city should be one of your priorities. I don't think that was the Braves' priority. It won't be the Thrashers' priority when they come back. The Falcons, thank goodness for Arthur Blank and his 200 years upcoming of life that he chose to stay in the city, because he could have did that same thing too. You see, all these people are just abandoning the city. It's not like this is a wasteland. It's not literally Walking Dead. There are some geek monsters, we call them, but there's not literal zombies, troves of zombies walking around downtown. You know, the CNN Center, the letters are gone, right? They are abandoning the city of Atlanta. Now, I do think that Atlanta is the phoenix that arose from the ashes. Something will come into that space that will be bigger and better. But if that could have been a part of a sports complex, a Battery style space, that would have been amazing for the city of Atlanta. And, secondarily, Decatur.
You also have to look at the politics of it all. I mean, I think it's a little unfair to say that the Braves didn't care, because everything I've researched says that they did. Now, they were offered a lot of tax incentives to move to Cobb County, and they received a lot of kickback from the city of Atlanta. So yes, I agree, they took the easier route, but you also have to look at it like these are businesses, right? They have to they have to look at what's in the best interest. And at the end of the day, that Cobb County area is booming now. And it could have been the city of Atlanta. I agree. But the city didn't want to, necessarily meet the Braves organization, whoever was heading that, initiative up in the middle, or they couldn't come to an agreement, right? And I think they felt, as an organization, the best thing for them to do was to go where they were receiving their support. I mean,
where they were receiving money. They lost so many day one fans leaving the city of Atlanta. They lost so many employees living the city of Atlanta. There's no way to get, if you live downtown, right, and you don't have a vehicle. Atlanta is a car city, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't have a way to get to Cobb. They abandoned a lot of employees. My brother-in-law, it appeared, worked with the Braves, and they didn't give any assistance for those who wanted to remain with the organization when it moved out to the Battery. You just had to, hey, either you with us or you're not.
I mean, CCT.
They did that to their fans. They did that. That's not the same, right?
I understand it's not the same, but if there's a will, there's a way. Is the point that I'm trying to make?
Decreased access stuff. Like if MARTA is the public transportation of Atlanta, and it is, it's in the name. It needs to access the places that have Atlanta in their name. The Braves have Atlanta in their name. You can't get there on MARTA. CCT, they don't have it. They don't need. It's just buses, right? They Uber is a better solution. It costs you a little bit more, but they only have buses. If you want mass public transit, you got to have at least some trains.
You could not take a MARTA train to Turner Field. The only way to access Turner,
you could walk there from the MARTA station. I've done it several times.
It was a haul, but they had buses that will bus you, MARTA buses, shuttles, whatever, same difference, to the stadium. But even to your point of the money, Arthur Blank received tax credits from the hotel and restaurant tax from the city of Atlanta to fund a big portion of the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. So you can't have one expectation of, we're not going to give the money to the Braves, we're going to give it to the Falcons, and they get mad when the Braves choose what's in their best interest financially.
Who owns the Braves?
And just say, oh, they took the money. Arthur Blank took the damn money. He was just given it by the city. Right. And that's all the Braves asked for.
Braves?
A media company at this point.
Which one?
Liberty.
You a fan?
Of Liberty Media?
I rest my case. You're not. You're not. You don't like the decisions they make. You think that they're money chasers because they are. That's who they are.
I am not a fan of corporations owning sports franchises. And I'm not a fan. No.
Maddie, specifically, you have issues with Liberty and the way they do business.
I have issues with businesses owning sports franchises, especially publicly held sports franchises or publicly held corporations that have stakeholders that they have to cater to that have interests outside of the sport.
Okay. Liberty fits into that. A square is a rectangle. Rectangle is not a square.
There are several entities that Liberty Media controls that I am a fan of. They are the owner of Formula One, for one. And their ownership.
All of it?
Yes, they own Formula One.
That's not even possible. What are you talking about?
They own
Formula One?
Yes, they own Formula One.
Okay. I'll take your word on that. I don't know.
They do. And with their ownership has expanded the global reach of Formula One. For many years, Okay.
American reach.
American reach, yes. They have increased the American audience. For years, the Formula One audience was vastly overseas with a pocket of fans here and there. So between Liberty Media and how they've marketed, utilizing Netflix and Drive to Survive as a tool to market, and broadcast deals that allow ESPN to broadcast all races, have tremendously advanced the support of the sport. So I am a fan of how they have managed that.
Say it. I'm a fan of Liberty Media. Can you say it?
I am a fan of how Liberty Media has managed Formula One. They also own Sirius XM, which I don't personally use Sirius, but I do think that it's a good service if you're into that thing. But they do have stakeholders. They do have interests outside of the average sports fan that
they have a boss.
Do conflict with our desires as fans, not going out and giving Shohei Ohtani, $1 billion to come play for the Braves. That's not a business decision I would have made to pass up.
The way the Dodgers did it, I'd do it.
Oh, yeah. I would do it in a heartbeat. But I'm saying it's not a business decision I would pass up. They didn't even consider it.
Oh, okay.
Right. Because of the dollars and cents. So I'm not a fan of that aspect, but I also am not going to sit here and say that, Arthur Blank is some, saint for extorting money from the city of Atlanta to fund his his building
for defamation. Extortion? No.
All right, so
he is literally a philanthropist of the city. Gives millions, hundreds of millions of dollars in the city out of his pocket.
It's
right.
Quid pro quo, man. You scratch my back, I'll scratch. It is. He would not
He's scratching first. How about that?
The Mercedes-Benz Stadium would not be built today if it wasn't the tax credits that were given to Arthur Blank to help fund it.
It was a multi-billion-dollar project. He needed help, is the thing, right? He wasn't going to be able to do it by himself. So he needed those tax credits. The Braves didn't even consider it. You don't like Liberty Media. The community, he doesn't like them. Kalnick, he does not like Liberty Media. He's going down his hill for argument's sake. But
that's not the argument.
For the money. They move for the money.
They could not have built the battery without the support of Cobb County's taxpayers. Just like we could not have built Mercedes-Benz Stadium without the taxpayer dollars given to them to build it. And that's all my argument is. It's not even about Liberty Media. It's the fact that
my argument. It's about Liberty Media. And you have swashbuckled your way around my argument to also present a legitimate argument.
They left for Cobb County. It's unfortunate. I do think at this point, if they were to change their name to the Cobb County Braves, I wouldn't be mad at them because they're not in the city of Atlanta. They're in the metro area. And I understand how that hurt a portion of the fan base. But I also know that politically speaking, their first goal was to build a development around Turner Field. And they did not come to an agreement to get that job done. I don't know what was offered. I don't know what was said. I know an arrangement was not agreed upon. So they went to the place that was willing to give them what they needed to get the job done.
Yeah, they had available tax dollars. We in the industry call that money. They went for the money.
Same thing Arthur did to build the bins.
It's not true.
It's
not true.
You said it yourself. It would not have been built if he did not receive financial assistance. It was a multi-billion-dollar project.
not that far away from Turner Field, dog. That could have been a conglomerate of. It could have been a sports mecca for the world if they had stayed. Now, I like the Battery. I love the Battery. But Liberty Media, they took the Braves to Cobb for money. That's it. They took it for money. This is one and only reason.
They followed the money.
Arthur Blank. Nah, there's plenty of money in Atlanta.
They followed where they were being offered the money to help develop the Battery.
Okay, so they were being offered more money, but I'm sure that there's not a situation in my mind where there was just $0 in Atlanta offered to them.
And I don't
Atlanta's
know.
a very, very prosperous city at this point. The movie industry, music industry, tax dollars. This is Black Hollywood. All these things. Money, money, money.
I challenge you to go do a little research this week on what was going on with Turner Field and the proposed development around there. I'm just see what you can find out.
Challenge accepted. Let me take that as a note.
Yeah, because
research Braves movement. And I'm coming back with
bring the heat. I can take it.
I'm coming back with receipts, baby.
Yeah. So
all right, I digress.
We went way off topic, but I think that was a good.
Atlanta. This is probably the most entertaining volleying we've had, man, and we've had some good conversations. But that one, I think you have a stance and I have a stance, and they're just not aligned. And I think that we have a level of passion behind those stances where agree to disagree was not going to cut it. All right, so we will resume this conversation next week. Is there another topic you want to get to the bonus material? What are we looking like as far as
yeah, we're creeping up on an hour and a half, so we'll make the bonus content. You got your bonus content, but
this was the bonus.
But we'll get to it. We'll make it brief. March Madness kicks off this week. A statistic that I heard that I found kind of interesting is that March Madness is the second highest grossing revenue sporting event for advertisement, only to one other sporting event. I'm sure you can
Super Bowl.
Yes, absolutely. So that was kind of surprising to me that it's up there that high when you think about things like the Olympics, the World Cup, these global events. Granted, those only come around every 4 years, but when you're just looking at, year to year revenue generation, March Madness is way up there, second to the Super Bowl. So that's pretty interesting.
It's a 3-week run, though, right?
Yes.
That's a lot of time spent for advertisements. You spend the right money, you have an audience for a very long time.
And you have a lot of networks that you're covering, right? There's like 4 or 5.
CBS, NBC.
True,
Turner.
Some unique ones. But yeah, this year there's no Georgia representation at all from any level, any college. Just kind of sad.
It is kind of sad because we've had somebody consistently for the last couple of years, whether it was Kennesaw State, Georgia State,
Georgia Tech. Well, I don't think Georgia's been in it in like a decade.
But I thought Antman didn't make the tournament, huh?
No, it's been a really long time that the Dogs made the tournament, but Kennesaw State, Georgia State, Georgia Southern maybe. I mean, Georgia Tech Georgia Tech's definitely been in there a couple times. So we have had representation pretty regularly. So I would like to know the last time there wasn't a team from the state of Georgia in the big tournament.
That's a good question. Yeah. We can
Do you partake in any bracketology?
I do. I do partake. We have a kind of co-own March Madness at the job, right? We've done that for the last couple of years. Haven't won it in a while, which is like, maybe it's because I'm too busy managing. It's really just sending out the link and the email. I don't even create the creative,
Right.
right? I do, and I can give you my final that I cemented today is UNC versus Purdue. So Purdue has a special place in my heart as an AT alien, actually, because I want to draft their center. I want to pair. I'm gonna say it until the draft is over. I want to pair Trae Young with Zach Edey. Oh man, this is gonna be staticky, dog. I can hear it again. I want to. Oh, it's bothering me. I want to pair Trae Young with Zach Edey, and I think that can be the next like Jamal Murray, Nikola Jokic combination in the league. So I'm interested in seeing how they do. I want to see him play as much as possible. Much as he can possibly play, it would be to win the finals, but I have UNC winning it. What about you?
I have UConn winning it, and I have them winning it against Purdue. So we are alike on that pick. My Final Fours, I just had to look it up because, frankly, I didn't really remember. I've got UConn versus Arizona and Houston versus Purdue. I remembered, like I knew I had UConn. They are, I think, the overall favorite. But this is the first year I've filled out a bracket in a long time. And honestly, I hadn't really planned on it, but we're going to be going to the beach with my in-laws, and it will be, I guess, 2 weeks. So in the height of tournament season. And so my father-in-law created a little ESPN bracket group for the fam. So Sarah sent me the link, and I filled out a bracket yesterday. Honestly, I don't follow a whole lot of college hoops anymore. I used to back when, we were in college, because we had several friends who played college ball, and I would follow them. But yeah, so I don't think I'll do very good, but we'll see. I mean, it's a crapshoot. It's a crapshoot.
My strategy was, so I was taking the record of the last 10 games. It's just available information on the CBS bracket, right? Record of the last 10 games, how many injuries they've had, and then their free throw percentage. But I had UConn as well in the Final Four. UConn, UNC, Houston, and Purdue.
At least you had a quantitative approach, man. I didn't even have that. Mine was more qualitative. Nah, it wasn't. I looked at I took brand into account in a few cases. Just give them the benefit of the doubt. But in some I had them win a couple of games, I think. I don't know how far.
Change that.
They're gonna lose.
They lost their best player for the entirety of the tournament. I just changed that like this afternoon. I saw that news.
We'll see. I gotta check. I had them beating Gonzaga. So we may have to check that. But what I did was I looked at their record against like their notable games and tried to look at kind of like opponents or like how they fared against some of the top teams and kind of made some judgment that way. But like I said, the really tough ones to me, and I think it's where most people trip up, it's like those 8-9 matchups where the records are really similar and it really could go either way. And then I always try to keep in mind that there's going to be a pretty major upset. So I have James Madison over Wisconsin. But yeah, there's some other really big college news that I want to just hit on real quick before we sign off. And that's Clemson getting in the lawsuit game against the ACC. And there were a lot of people just kind of questioning after the FSU lawsuits, like where's Clemson? Because those are two of the bigger brand names in the ACC. And, well, we finally found out where they've been. They've been doing their due diligence and collecting all the needed information and quietly working in the background to join in and sue the ACC. And this has some pretty big ramifications depending on how this plays out. And you and I, briefly talked about it earlier. You were thinking, how in the world could they possibly get out of this brand of rights deal? But their arguments, both the FSU and Clemson argument, is there's a lot of language in the contract that makes the contract really not enforceable or even a valid contract. Like, so one of the ones that came up with Clemson is the ACC can vote you out without your participation, right? They can say you're no longer allowed to participate in the ACC. We're done with you. And they can vote on that behind closed doors without your representation. After that, they would still own your broadcast rights for the next 12 years. Which, like, there's no way that that's even remotely enforceable. And the same argument can be said, they could pay their fees to get out of the astronomical fees, the $100+ million fees to get out, and the ACC would still own their broadcast rights. So I think
that part I didn't know. I thought if they paid to get out, they were out. I knew how much it was, $140 million.
No, they would
compare to like let me see, I still got it up. Compared to $45 million if, say, a Georgia was to leave the SEC, without notice.
Yeah,
so that's crazy.
So I think there is a lot of credence to their argument. Like, I don't know legally how it works, but I believe the argument is basically like those contracts really aren't valid and they're kind of voided based off of that language, right? Like, how could you have a buyout clause and yet language that says, if I buy my way out, you still own me, right? Like, it just doesn't jive, right? There's something askew there. So what will ultimately probably end up happening is some sort of settlement, because if the ACC were to take this to court and by chance lose, the floodgates would open and there would be a mass exodus and the ACC would turn into the Pac-2, right? And cease to exist. Yeah. And, kind of the other side of the coin with this is the college football playoff. They voted on the revenue splits for the broadcast contracts just for the CFP in the playoff, right? And the Big Ten and the SEC are taking a substantially larger piece of the pie. And so, that's a primary motivation for some of these schools, right? To get out. The interesting thing and how this ties back into UGA, the Southeastern Conference, Georgia Tech, is right now the Big Ten has 18 teams. The SEC has 16 teams. The logic there says that even though the SEC Commissioner Sankey is saying we're not interested in doing any more conference realignment, we're not interested in expanding our conference, the basic human logic would tell you that they have at least room for two. So that would be seemingly FSU and Clemson. Now there's a third school that has also kind of entered the conversation, entered the chat, and that's UNC. And they have yet to formally go after the ACC, but they have expressed interest in basically leaving. So if all this stuff goes down, if you have FSU and Clemson joining the SEC, right, they'll become, regular competition with UGA. So that's really how that tie-in really works, right? That the SEC would expand. They would be a regular opponent of the Dogs. I think they're two formidable, historic programs. They'd add a lot of value to the SEC. Add some strength of schedules to that roster. We'd be recruiting a little bit more fiercely against them than we already do, which we've had some pretty good recruiting battles with both schools in recent years. But then you have Georgia Tech. And if the ACC were to completely collapse, the question is where do all those teams go when it comes to conference realignment?
Mm-hmm.
One idea is you have these two super conferences that basically the Big Ten and the SEC absorb the ACC and the Big 12. And you would do it somewhat regionally. So Georgia Tech.
Or the Pac-2. They would absorb the Big Ten.
The Big Ten would between the SEC and the Big Ten, you have the Big 12, which, Louisville, Baylor, Oklahoma State, Iowa State, not Iowa. Some of those schools that's where they exist. Texas Tech, I think, is in Kansas, those schools. And then you have the ACC, and between the Big Ten and the SEC, you would absorb those two conferences. And then there's only two schools remaining in the Pac-12. Those are more than likely going to go to some other mid-major conference, Mountain West, whatever.
Oregon and USC?
No, they're in the Pac-10 next year. The two remaining schools are like Washington State and Oregon State, maybe.
So they already left. I didn't know that.
Everyone else already left.
Every conference has to change their name, right? At some point. Maybe SEC just becomes EC. And the Big 10 or the Big 12 didn't know that there's a difference, becomes the Big West Side, right? Like you got Missouri in the SEC. It makes sense that Georgia Tech, Tallahassee, which is Florida State, Clemson, even like a Miami, UNC. The ACC has some competent football programs. They had just had some down years. It's been dominated by, if you're not Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan, you just haven't been a regular participant in the dance, right?
Other than Clemson, the ACC hasn't had a relevant football program, one that actually competed for national championships in the last...
When they went undefeated?
In the last 15, 20
years. That's what
years.
started this whole thing. Florida State went undefeated. They weren't invited to the playoff.
Yes, because they are viewed as a lesser conference, and injury was, factored in, which honestly that's a whole nother argument for another day. I think we would agree on.
Sankey didn't want him in. They didn't make it in.
Sankey is not the ruler of. Sankey is the SEC.
He will be the ruler of all.
I do think.
And I was watching that interview. He will be the Roger Goodell of college football when it very quickly. I don't think we had to wait that long. Very quickly morphs into a semi-professional. I mean, they're gonna get paid, so professional football league, a elite pad league, if you will,
a developmental league,
the NFL. Yeah, developmental. That's the word you've been using. That's what I was looking for. Yeah, a D league of sorts.
Yeah,
to the NFL. Sankey will rule them all. He is the ring that controls them all.
But yeah, depending what happens with the ACC, if they can, still hold on and remain a conference, I do think that it hurts Georgia Tech in their growth and aspirations as they try to become relevant again, like they were in the early 90s, and some in the mid 2000s.
Paul Johnson, right?
Well, that was more mid 2000s.
Here's their last time being successful that I remember.
Yeah. But that success was like still mediocrity, right? They weren't really vying for titles.
Big Georgia fan. This is high expectations. So I was looking up their record for the last 4 years. It was 3-9, 3-9, 4-8, and then this last year, even there was another subpar year before that. But this last year was the first time they were above 500 in 5 years. They were 7-6. They beat 2 ranked teams during the season. I definitely think it would be to their detriment that the ACC goes away, because if they're now they have to compete against everyone. What does that even look like, right? They're not gonna.
I think it
doesn't seem like they would compete well versus the big dogs in the SEC or the big dogs in the. Is it 12 or 10? Big 12, Big 10.
There's both. There's 2 conferences.
Which one houses Michigan and Ohio State?
The Big 10.
10. Okay. 10.
Yeah. The Big 10 that has 18 teams. They were at 10.
Gotta change the names. There's nothing southeastern about Missouri or Texas A&M.
Oh no, I could see Texas A&M.
What? There's nothing east about Texas. It's literally
the
dividing line.
It's east of the middle. It's on the east side of Texas.
It's west of the Mississippi River, which is how we formulate that. Okay.
If you take a line from the tip of Texas and go straight up, it's on the east side.
All right. I'll give you that one. Sure. They can be east. They're on the east side of their state, at least. Put them in the SEC.
They're in the southern part of America. If you divide,
No, they're in the south. The east was the point that you had to convince me on. I can see. Right. East side of Texas. Texas is big. It's in the middle of the country.
But there's no explanation for Missouri.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Midwest as you can be.
But I kind of take a different stance. I think it's to the detriment of Georgia Tech if they have to remain in the ACC, because it will be viewed as such a lower conference that, even if they have success, what does it mean? Right? You're ultimately going to be judged regardless on how well you do against the bigger brands. So, a big knock against Georgia Tech, even Clemson in those runs. Now they went on to win the national championship and proved a lot of the doubters wrong, but they basically could sleepwalk to the ACC championship. In a couple of those, they played a Georgia Tech team that was below mediocre, right? So ultimately, you're judged against the opponents you face. And if they stay in a lesser conference, ACC minus, Clemson, Florida State, it will be worse. It will be harder for them to recruit. There will be so much draw to the 2 bigger conferences, the SEC and the Big 10, that they will be picking up scraps. Now, if they consolidate into the SEC, which, believe it or not, they were a founding member of.
Were they really?
Yeah.
Georgia Tech?
Yeah, they left the SEC in, I think it was 1963. And
very nice.
Yeah.
Put some respect on this podcast, man. We're coming out with facts.
I could have that year wrong. It was definitely in the 60s, though.
Don't doubt yourself. It was 63 for sure. Guarantee it. I guarantee it.
Yeah.
They left though. What? So
But
keep
they
going down that
left.
train.
Oddly enough, Tulane was also a charter member of the SEC. But either way, if they were to say rejoin the SEC in some mega conference, at least the level of competition that they would be playing year in and year out would offer them a higher standard to recruit at, right? Like you could go into someone's living room and legit say, like, you are going to be playing against the best of the best each and every Saturday. And that's going to develop you and prepare you and showcase you to the NFL.
Scouts look at the entire landscape. If you want to make to the AC, if you want to make to the NFL, I don't think your conference, it does bode well. You get a lot more visibility if you're in the Big Ten or the SEC. But if you balling, you're gonna have a better opportunity to do so in the ACC. Right? I would say if I am a quarterback, running back, in any of the back positions, cornerback, I'm gonna have and I'm not say a 5-star. I'm gonna have more opportunity to be seen by scouts if I go to a school that is of a lesser ilk than an SEC school, and I'm able to impact wins at a higher level because I am playing a lesser competition. Right? If I'm Georgia Tech and if I'm a student athlete, I have to choose between a situation at Georgia where I'm not going to play or a situation at Georgia Tech where I'm going to start and play a lesser competition. I'm probably choosing. Even still, I'll probably choose Georgia just because they are the perennial. They're a powerhouse, right? But I think there's credence, there's legitimacy to the argument that you need the ability to go to lower schools if you are not the guy, right? You can still have a lot of success. You could bring success back to a program as long as they're building right. Looks like Georgia Tech is on a trajectory to be better. I was saying it before. They were 7-6 last year. That's the best record they've had in a while, and they're supposed to be even better. They're bringing back their running back. I can't think of his name, but he was a dog, right? If he was an actual dog, we might not know about this cat.
There's a reason why Jahmyr Gibbs went to Alabama from Georgia Tech. There's a reason.
I didn't know he even started at Georgia Tech.
He did. He only went to Alabama for his senior year, his final college season.
Offensive line.
No, because he was a stud at Georgia Tech. I do think that there is a path to the NFL from a lesser school. I'm not going to deny that. It happens all day, every day. There are stars that come from lesser schools. I mean, Randy Moss, Terrell Owens,
Chad Johnson, Jerry Rice.
Just to name a few.
Seems like wide receivers don't come out of those.
You even have quarterbacks that went to lesser known schools. I mean, Brett Favre that went to like Montana?
Yeah.
Or no, I think
somewhere in Mississippi, but it wasn't one of the bigger schools, I don't think.
I think
it wasn't Ole Miss.
I think it was oh man, why can't I remember? Joe Montana went to some smaller college, lesser known football, not a perennial football school, right? But either way, like
Peyton Manning, would you put him on that list? Like
no.
Tennessee it's a known school, but they haven't been known for football in some time.
Since Peyton Manning.
Right. Since Peyton Manning, that's what I'm saying.
No,
and before him, I don't think they were on the map like that either. A player can make the school.
Tennessee.
Now they're a massive school. They've had success in basketball. They've had success in baseball, softball. They were really good for a long time. Don't ask me how I know that, but that's true. And then those Peyton Manning football years, even I guess they've had some. No, they haven't really. I wouldn't call it success.
So
Since he left,
Tennessee, in a lot of ways, was Georgia for a long time. And I mean that in the sense that they were always competing at the high level, but were always just missing it by just a smidge, right? And even during the Peyton Manning era, they didn't win a national championship. They were close. They got real close. They didn't do it. It was actually after Peyton graduated that T. Martin won the national title, ironically enough. But no, Tennessee is always, I say always, because the last decade has been difficult for them. They've had some ups and downs.
Years.
But perennially speaking, perennially speaking, they are in the upper tier of football programs historically. Kind of like LSU.
Are they even upper tier in SEC?
Yeah, I would say they're at least top 2-3 in the East. Well, the East doesn't exist anymore.
SEC, all of it.
So last year they had a tough year. The year before, I would say they were third. It was Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee in terms of talent, performance. You know,
Herndon Hooker,
Hendon Hooker, and Hyatt, Jalen Hyatt, and that team. But either way, to go back to what I was trying to say earlier, I still think that if you are a player and you go and you play for Georgia Tech or Vanderbilt and you're playing in the SEC, and yes, your team is maybe on the lower end of the SEC, because of the level of competition you play in and day out each week, you have better game film. You have better comparison. If you go out and you ball at Vanderbilt, you're going to get more looks than someone who's balling at Tulane. And it's because you're playing against what's viewed as higher caliber competition. So if you can do it against them, then you can do it against, other higher caliber players. Georgia just
you
took.
think that holds more weight than like going to? Because we're talking about Georgia Tech. If they go to the SEC, they're not gonna sniff a SEC championship anytime soon. But at their current trajectory in the ACC, they can make it to an ACC championship.
It depends on how you value success, right? Like, if you want to put trophies in a case, ACC titles, sure. Like, but what does that really mean?
No, even as just a player, right? To be seen on the biggest stage, you only need that one game. All right. Obviously, it took more than one game to get there. But if you're the star of the ACC championship and your team has a successful record, you get that bid into the college football playoffs. It's not as easy as a Big Ten or SEC.
Well, you'll get it. You would get it, and I think the future model. But what does that do if you just go and you
more
get
eyes, man, as a player,
get the absolute break speed off of you? Because I'm telling you right now, your ability to recruit in a conference like the ACC or the MAC or the Mountain West or whatever is far.
Those are not the same.
It will be.
They are not the same.
If you remove the biggest value brands from that conference, it becomes such a lesser conference that your ability to bring in talent will be much more difficult to be able to compete against the big programs. You may make it to the dance, but what's making it there to get beat 65-7? Like TCU.
Did I score the touchdown?
Yeah.
No, I get your point. That's solid.
I do think
it's gonna be curious what happens. How does that? I know it's super long. How does their leaving impact their like basketball program.
They have to follow.
They lead being
So
yeah,
that
that's
was
wild.
that was a huge topic of controversy when looking at what the Pac-12 did, because now, so it's one thing for Oregon or USC to fly to Penn State or Michigan to play a football game. It's a whole nother ball game for them to travel for basketball. They don't get the same amount of financial
Not a
resources.
full week off either.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And really, basketball is a bad example. Softball, tennis, volleyball,
Women's lacrosse.
lacrosse.
Yeah.
And it's just not good. It's not good. A lot of these decisions that are being made with a football blinder shield on because it's the largest revenue generating sport. And
yeah.
And it's going to be at the detriment of those other sports. I know we talked about it for quite a bit of time last week, but don't be surprised if when all this stuff shakes out that you have basketball, maybe baseball, and that's about it. And football, like some of these other programs are going to get deleted because they won't have the funds.
Both the SEC and the Big 12 conferences have the most team representation within the with 8 programs each in the 2024 NCAA tournament. I was going to say that the ACC was still the toast of college basketball. This says otherwise. I mean, obviously, you still got the Dukes, the UNCs, the NC States. Haven't heard a lot about, like a Wake Forest in a while. Clemson is in there, but their number is just less. That's curious. I would have thought that ACC put more players in this year.
Yeah, I mean, you can get into a whole rabbit hole of conspiracy theories when you start really following some of that trails and where the money's coming from. And even with the CFP, I've mentioned it before, it's an ESPN broadcast deal. ESPN has exclusive broadcast rights deals with the SEC. Who does it benefit?
Fix is in, huh?
Who does it benefit the most? The SEC. It's more advantageous for the SEC.
Collect the marketing dollars.
Just follow the money. I find it they did. I find it rather interesting though, because for years, the SEC was a CBS conference. The Big Ten got in bed with CBS, and the SEC got in bed with ESPN, but ESPN's been in bed with the college football playoff this whole time. So Greg Sankey knows what he's doing, man. He's the Don. He's going to be leading it all, like you said.
Yeah.
No doubt. No doubt in my mind whatsoever.
He may take Roger Goodell's job.
Well, one can hope.
And then what happens to college football now that he set them on this course and then he just abandoned ship?
No, he wouldn't.
They're going to sink like the Titanic, bro.
Yeah, let's hope not.
He at least seems to have an idea. I saw his interview when the decision had not yet been made on the 4th team in the playoff. Right, they were talking about Florida State versus Alabama, and he was like, "Well, listen, the SEC's got to be represented." It's like, damn, Alabama's gonna make it, huh? Is that what he's saying? Lo and behold, Alabama's in the game, and Florida State is not. I do think their player, I think it was their quarterback, right? Him being out was a factor, but
It shouldn't have been.
That seems like a Greg Sankey decision. And he's going to continue to make decisions until he's not in a position to make the decisions, which to me means he has found work elsewhere, not that he has been unalived from his job. We'll see though. He definitely seems like the down man.
I think the telling story is that every year the college football playoff committee has moved the mark. They've moved the metric. You know, 1 year is like, oh, you have to win your conference championship. Well, the next year they put in someone who didn't win their conference championship. It's like, well, you know, it's head-to-head matchup. They just keep moving the metric, right?
Someone from where?
Huh?
The SEC. That did not win. They are frequently the
beneficiaries
exception to the rule. Yeah, the beneficiary of the
more specifically
the
Alabama
regime.
And if you're still with us, Kyle, yeah, I'm talking to you. Alabama's been the recipient of the moving metrics of the CFP, the darlings of the SEC. Not so more. This is Georgia's time. I will not resort to barking at other human beings.
Well, you can make an elephant noise if that's what you would prefer. How dare you? This is a show by AT Aliens for AT Aliens. You don't hear Roll Tide in man? Wow.
I didn't say that. Those words never left my mouth.
Matt Simon, Alabama fan. I'm cutting it. And this will be what I post. I'm going to post this on social this week.
Oh man, there was someone we played baseball with growing up that played for the University of Alabama, played wide receiver, and
Darius Hanks.
Thank you, Darius. Yeah. I did pull for him to succeed, and when they were in the national championship against LSU, I did root for Darius to do his thing. Told you, I'm a homer. Different. I'm a homer above all. So I gotta.
Unless you go to the Saints, you know, I can be a closet fan of you.
Oh no,
the Saints, man. I'm rooting for you to be in that bus accident.
Yeah.
That makes y'all late to the game. No one dies. No one's injured, but you just missed the game. You have to forfeit.
I mean, when we're not playing him on Sunday, I enjoy seeing the success of Alvin Kamara, right? He's a Norcross grad. You can't hate on him.
I hear you. I do. Would I love for him to be a Falcon? Sure, but he's not. He plays for the Saints. No love for that guy, right?
Yeah, I can see past the black and gold on a normal Sunday. Not
That's
against the Falcons.
Between me and you, buddy.
Yeah.
So Blings, man.
I had some things I wanted to talk about with the Falcons, but we're gonna have to hold them since we've been running for 2 hours.
We'll save them. Yeah.
Yeah, but I will say, interesting rumors. You know, Hassan Riddick's one.
You said you weren't gonna get into it.
I'm not. I'm just saying. You heard it here first. If we sign Hassan or trade for Hassan Riddick, that will dictate how we go in the draft, one way or another. If we don't, expect defense, and I'm done.
Well, how I feel about it is, let's call it, man.
Yeah, appreciate you who stuck with us through all this.
You made it to here, bro. You are a legend.
Yeah.
But we definitely gave you some click-worthy content with our discussion today, man. So, like, subscribe, comment, circle back. Maybe you've seen this in your second pass of the episode. Always circle back, man. There's great content at the very end.
I will say I like to rewatch through just so I can do my own critique, just see what we can improve on, and it takes me a couple different sit downs to get through the whole thing. I understand it's long, but I do enjoy the conversations. I do think we hit what's relevant, what the true Atlanta fan, wants to talk about. Not just, the surface level big news story, but actually diving into it, getting deep into to the Atlanta sports culture, and not just hot takes, but our takes. So with that, on to more success and more episodes.
Always forward. That's where we're going.
Yes, sir.
Peace.
Peace.